So for tonight's class, we are going to talk about flipped curriculum, a little bit of digital divide discussion, because I know that you guys are still thinking about that, and academic language. So you're going to watch the video, The Flipped Classroom is Not. The link to this video is also available on Canvas.
As a flipped classroom teacher, I've seen lots of misconceptions around what the flipped classroom is and what the flipped classroom is not. So, rather than discussing what the flipped classroom is in my practice, I'll discuss a list that most flipped classroom teachers can agree the flipped classroom is not. So, let's get started. The flipped classroom is not the Khan Academy. While the Khan Academy is an excellent resource for use in and out of the classroom, the flipped classroom is special because classroom teachers create the videos to suit their students' needs. We want students to be active in their learning, not droids sitting in front of screens getting a lecture from someone halfway across the globe. The videos are an extension of the teacher and help create a strong relationship between student and teacher. The flipped classroom is not a replacement of teachers. This couldn't be further from the truth. In the flipped classroom, the role of the teacher is more important than ever. There's no sitting at the back of the class reading the newspaper and having a coffee, as much as I'd like to sometimes. In the flipped classroom, the teacher is active all day. Teachers get a chance to work with every student, every class. The flipped classroom is not all about the videos. Yeah, videos are the backbone of the flipped classroom, and I am hoping one of these days to produce a video that goes viral and perhaps appear on Ellen. However, it is the flexibility the videos provide that is the true benefit. Teachers now have additional classroom time where they can develop rich learning activities to extend their students' experience. The flipped classroom is not the silver bullet. The flipped classroom does not solve all that is broken in education. If it did, I'd probably be filthy rich. It's just one tool to increase student learning. Inflexibility, lack of classroom time, and student-centered classrooms are problems that I feel the flipped classroom helps solve. The flipped classroom is not a one-size-fits-all teaching approach. Each flipped classroom teacher develops an approach that works for them and their students. As an example, some teachers have students watch the videos in class, some students watch them at home, in a car, on a bus, on a plane. It's turning into a Dr. Seuss book. And some even get the students to create the videos themselves. The limits of the flipped classroom are only as limited as the teacher's imagination. The flipped classroom is not top-down. The flipped classroom is 100% driven by teachers. For the model to be authentic, it needs to be initiated and created by the teacher for the teacher. How often have we attended a staff meeting and be presented with the newest flavor of the week to never give it another thought? The flipped classroom is a flavor teachers want to do because they believe in it. And it's delicious. The flipped classroom is not a teacher holiday. The flipped classroom is anything but a holiday. The amount of time that goes into creating quality videos and activities is second to none. In the classroom, teachers are no longer spending time lecturing. Instead, they're constantly interacting with their students, inspiring, observing, and as we all know, sometimes prodding. The flipped classroom is not easy. Students have been in the traditional model of school for their entire educational career. They like playing school. Some of them are very good at it. Now that we want them to play learning, it can be a tough pill for them to swallow. And lastly, the flipped classroom is not all about students watching videos for homework. It's about students using videos when and where appropriate for their learning journey. Many of my students find that they use their classroom time so effectively they rarely have homework. And believe me, they love this. Now they have time for things that truly matter to them, like Twitter and Facebook. These are just a couple of things I think the flipped classroom is, and the flipped classroom is not.
Click over to the Google form and respond to the questions. The link to this form is on Canvas, so you'll just go ahead and have to pause the video as you're watching it and click over to Canvas so you can access this form. You'll fill it out, just type in your name, and then answer those 3 questions. What are 2 things the speaker says about the flipped classroom? What's one thing you learned about flipped classrooms from watching this video? And one question that you still have about flipped classrooms. Then you'll read the article 10 Reasons to Flip, which is linked on Canvas. I'll go ahead and show you the article right now. Okay, it is about a southern Minnesota school district that flipped its math classrooms and the effects of that. Okay, and it's 5 pages in length, so it's not too bad. But it is a rural school district, so I think that's interesting for a lot of you guys, and you can kind of see, what happened with their experience. And there you go. So you'll read that article. Okay, and then after you're finished with that, you'll answer the questions. There may be questions, but actually I have it posted as a group discussion, so you'll be doing more like a silent discussion, and you'll see other people's comments. So don't delete their comments, but go ahead and you'll click on that link and it'll take you to 10 reasons to flip discussion. Okay, and if you notice, it says you may choose to talk about one of the key points in the article. You can choose to ask a question you still have and want others to talk about, or you may respond to other people's responses. Treat it as a silent discussion, and make sure that you don't delete anybody else's comments. But you'll just click down to the bottom and say, I think blah blah blah, whatever you have to talk about. But remember, this is editable and everybody in our class can type into it. So don't delete people's comments, just add. Okay, if you see something that you want to add to, just click right there and then start typing, or you can even push return a couple times. Make sure you write your name, since this is part of your participation in the LEXP this week. Make sure you sign your name after your comments, okay, so you get credit for that. So there are lots of different ways to flip. As you've seen during class, we did a simulation, which is a good option. There are lots of simulations that could work for different content areas, and hopefully you have experimented with some of those. A lot of simulations, of course, take place in science, but I think there are simulations in history where it could simulate your experience through a historical event. There are simulations in English where you're filling in different things and it's helping you to experience writing in a different way. Lectures online and videos are the most common ways that people are flipping. So as far as just recording yourself or figuring out how to create a presentation online that students can access from home and pause and rewind. Discussion boards, I think that I'm trying to demonstrate the discussion boards in this case is that you can, create discussion boards that are on Google, that could be a document that people could just continue to add to. You could do discussion boards like Canvas, which you guys have experienced during class. You could also do use Google as doing the Google quizzes. Now actually the Google forms that you guys have been filling out are in the Google quiz category, I guess, because you can choose to have multiple choice questions. I've just chosen that you fill in the blank and you're able to, add whatever text that you want to, but the Google quizzes are something that you would go into Google Forms and be able to create multiple choice. You could also create surveys in Google, and that's actually my favorite way to do the surveys because it has so many options and you don't have to subscribe to it. SurveyMonkey's another one that I have used a lot, but it limits the amount of questions that you can ask, and Google Quizzes does not do that. And then a web quest where students just kind of go through and learn from you kind of directing them on a website and telling them what to look for, and they maybe answer questions. So there could be a combination of those variety of things. So I'm trying to incorporate as many different things into this presentation as possible so you'll be able to get your brains thinking. So the digital divide, I know that many of you are still worried about the digital divide and how you can work to overcome this divide in your classroom and in your school. So take a look at the video that follows this slide. And it's from about that school in Michigan that I mentioned during class that flipped the entire school. It's just a short video, but they talked about it on Dateline actually, and examined, what the different things were. They talked to an English teacher, they talked to a math teacher, and people that were suspect, I guess, of this strategy, and also talked to a mom and to a kid. Now I know that it took place in Detroit. It's a low-income school, but students don't have access to high levels of technology at home. Students don't have multiple computers. They're in the same sort of situations that your students are in at your schools, and they have come up with solutions, and it is still working. So I think it's a great video for you to watch, just to get you thinking of how you can view this as something that can be overcome rather than something that is, impossible to overcome.
What if you took the traditional school day and flipped it on its head. Not literally, of course, but having lessons offered at night at home and homework done by day in the classroom.
How would I do it?
That's the experiment underway at Clintondale High School, just outside Detroit, an area still reeling from the economic and social ills of the nearby city. The school serves many low-income families and faces tight budgets and declining enrollment.
So what's the number part that I'm going to enroll for?
Just 3 years ago, almost half of Clintondale's ninth graders were failing math, science, and English. And overall school performance was ranked in the lowest 5% in Michigan.
Yeah.
Principal Greg Green decided to take a risk.
Frankly, we weren't doing very well, and so we had to make a change. I mean, we were desperate for change.
His aha moment came while coaching his 11-year-old son's baseball team. Having learned to record and post instructional videos for his players to watch outside of practice, he was struck by how much time was then left to focus on individual players on the field. He saw the educational potential starting with the power of videos.
Kids can go back and watch them as many times as they want, and in me as an instructor or expert, I don't have to redo that all the time, and I can spend my time with the students in class and actually assisting them. And so if I could do that with 11-year-olds, imagine what we could do with 15 or 16-year-olds doing math.
Green went all in, flipping the entire school, urging his staff to rethink the use of technology and how it complements traditional teaching, and getting local businesses to help fund the
So
effort.
the legislative branch makes the laws.
Now, lectures are recorded and posted online,
The American Civil War lasted from 1861 to 1865.
or teachers can assign outside videos from the popular Khan Academy and TED Talks. Students watch these videos as homework outside of class.
Why do you say Smithsonian?
In class, students now do what was once considered homework, assignments designed to test learning comprehension. Clintondale teachers say this allows more time for one-on-one help and often encourages students to collaborate in problem solving. But English teacher Rob Damron said it took some convincing.
When we first did this, it was funny to look around that staff meeting and look at a lot of staff members, especially the ones that have been here 25, 30 years, and say, what are you talking about? What's a blog? What's a Google group?
Apostrophes makes a noun show ownership or possession.
For teaching for 20 years, I know what lessons kids are going to have a problem with. But I think with doing this flipped approach, there's problems I didn't even know existed. So you really can't hide back there in the corner and say, yeah, I got it. And then the teacher sees later on, well, no, you really didn't get it.
One problem the school faced head-on, students who can't afford or don't have access to technology outside of class. They're given extra time in the school's media lab.
Segregation before 1954.
Taking the technology-driven approach further, some lesson plans are now tailored to have students use the latest trends in social media.
Thanks to the 19th Amendment, us women have the right to vote.
We deserve to vote. We deserve to vote.
Like this project that required constitutional amendments to be summed up in 6 seconds for the popular website Vine. Green says that taken all together, after 3 years, the flip is paying off.
Our ACT games have shown doubling the national average as far as ACT games. State testing, we've had some mixed results on that. And we've also seen an increase in graduation rates to almost 90%, college acceptance rates at 80%.
Senior Darrell Wallace Jr. is one example. His grades have risen from a 2.5 GPA as a freshman to 3.5 as a senior. And he says the flip has played a big role. He now watches videos on his cell phone while taking the bus home into a rough section of Detroit, where he lives with his mother and 4 sisters.
I really look at the videos more because I know I might not have as much time at home because my sisters are in college and they need the computer, so I'm like, I can do it on my phone. And the bus ride is like 30 minutes, so I probably can get like half of my assignment done.
Darrell's mother, Sabrina Young, also likes the flipped model, saying there's only so much she can do to help with traditional homework.
Especially algebra. So him doing it at school is a plus for him and as well as me because I didn't remember the majority of it.
The popularity of online learning has surged in recent years, and flipped classrooms have started popping up everywhere, from elementary schools to some of the nation's top universities. Clintondale is the first U.S. high school to do a total flip. Harvard's Justin Reich has been studying the trend and says he's cautiously optimistic.
What is exciting to me about the flipped classroom is that it gets teachers asking two really important fundamental questions. What are the best ways for me to use my time, especially the very precious time I have in classrooms with my students? And then what are the kinds of direct instruction that I could provide that could be digitized so that people could watch it again?
You'll notice that the last set of notes I gave you were for week 5.
But Reich says that flipping alone isn't enough. As with any lesson plan, it all depends on exactly what's being offered.
If what we see from the flipped classroom is that we take bad lectures and uninteresting worksheet problems that characterize a lot of the experience that students have in schools, and we simply flip the order of those two things, the odds that we see significant improvement in our schools is pretty low.
And so now we're going to be taking a derivative with respect to T.
Meanwhile, some individual teachers are experimenting with the flipped classroom on their own. 3 years ago, Stacy Roshan flipped her upper-level math classroom at the private Bullis High School outside of Washington, D.C., where students pay up to $35,000 a year in tuition.
What's the derivative of pi r squared h?
She says it's been working for her, but that it might not be for everyone.
I think what's the most important thing is that you really think through what your problem is. I wouldn't say that because everybody's doing the flipped classroom, it's cool, you should do the flipped classroom too. My problem was really time, anxiety, and perhaps if I went to another school, I would do things completely differently.
One added surprise for Roshan in structuring her class this way is what she learned about the reach of her online lessons.
I get thank you letters from students all the time, not even just from the U.S., but overseas too, and that part always amazes me.
Back at Clintondale, Principal Greg Green's big experiment is getting a lot of attention. More than 200 educators from around the world have visited the school, trying to draw lessons from the flipped classroom.
So now that you've watched that video from Clintondale, what can you learn from Clintondale that would work with your students? What still concerns you? Go to the Google form and submit your response. There's a link to this on Canvas as well. So you'll go in there, enter your name. What can you take away from Clintondale's experience, and what are you still concerned about? I think that the experience at Clintondale can resonate with all of the situations that you guys are facing in your classrooms. It is an urban school. Some of you are teaching in urban schools, some of you are not. However, I think that the digital divide that they talk about and the benefits that they're talking about in regard to flipping with their students is something that could be important for all of you in your classrooms. And the principal at Clintondale did not view it as a problem that could not be solved, and I think that is a big takeaway from this video for all of you that were feeling very overwhelmed with the idea of using a flipped classroom because of the digital divide that your students have, or you're worried that students don't have access. But I also think that in light of 21st century skills and how we want students to become more digitally literate, that we need to use digital tools in order to get them ready for their futures and to be prepared and to be on par with students that do have access. And so I think that it's a disservice to them if we're not doing those things. So once you're finished with that,